Let's start this week with a question. Do you know how many works of Michelangelo is credited with? Let me restate. Did you know prior to looking at this sheet how many works of art Michelangelo, the artist, not the Ninja Turtle?
I'm not much of an art follower, so no,
nor am I. But over 200. I didn't know it either until I looked it up. Over 200. Now, of those, could you name any of them?
Before reading this, no.
No. Okay. But you knew who he was.
Yep. Did know that Michelangelo was both an artist and also, moonlighted as a Ninja Turtle?
Yes.
Yeah. Didn't know, that's about the extent of my knowledge on it.
So the artist, Michelangelo, and I'm curious, I don't know, if you're listening, I'm curious, could you name 5 pieces of the 200 he did? 10 pieces? Could you name, do you know between 2 and 5% of, I'm curious.
Not I.
No, I
mean,
couldn't
when I read these, I think, oh, yeah, okay.
Right. Now, when I say, all right, the roof of the Sistine Chapel, which is known as a creation of Adam or David, which is a very famous sculpture, the reality is that this is one of the most famous artists of all time. The majority of us may only know a handful or less, or be familiar with the works that he did. Mm-hmm. By now, you may be wondering, why are we talking about this on Wade into Wealth, a podcast about personal finance and investments and business? And if you're wondering, I think that's a valid wonder.
Well, I think it dovetails nicely, though.
The point of this is that over the past 40 years, and even going back further, but the data we're talking about was accrued over the last 40 years, nearly all of the investment returns, which are overwhelmingly positive, have been driven by a glorified handful of investments.
Yeah. But the problem is we spend too much time focusing on the investments that don't measure up or lose money.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't matter. It's just that we have to kind of view those as, in a way, the cost or the opportunity cost of building wealth over time.
They are often given a significantly larger amount of emphasis than merit. Today, for example, I had a meeting with a client who I've known, who's been a client for over 10 years now. And she came in and started talking about investments that had underperformed this year. I said, yeah, right. But in a year where the market's down 13, 14%.
More than that. But
okay.
Yep.
You're down 6%.
Mm-hmm.
And over that 10-year period, you've averaged a return of 7.5%.
Mm-hmm.
She said, okay, I guess we're good.
Not bad, Mr. Chuck.
Well, the point of it being is that it's very easy to look at and focus on the things that go wrong. And this is not just in finance. This is in life.
Yeah, in reality, some of those things that go wrong make up a very, very modest part of your portfolio.
Right.
And if we get ourselves, there's a saying I like, because we're all human beings, and we're wearing a new outfit, and we go out in the new outfit, we're feeling good about ourselves because, you look good, feel good.
Sure.
And you get 4 compliments and you get 1 critique.
Right.
And when we go home at night, we're going to be thinking about that critique, and we will gloss over the compliments, even though it only makes up 20% of the comments that we got on that new outfit we had on today.
You're absolutely right. When I left television, and it's funny, this is perfect. When I left TV, I was at Channel 13 in Rochester, and they did a little thing on my last day saying goodbye. And there was a lot of very nice feedback. The one I remember was on, I think, Channel 13's Facebook page that said, "This guy hated the Buffalo Bills. Not sorry to see him go."
Yeah.
And I got a kick out of it, but it is funny. That's the one that's
the one you remember.
One I remember, absolutely.
Because we're human beings.
We do, yeah. We're talking today about a study that was released within the last couple of years by J.P. Morgan of the Russell 3000 Index, and it's called The Agony and the Ecstasy, which is the name of a biography about Michelangelo the artist.
Not the Teenage Mutant
Ninja Turtle. That we're getting to a point where when I stop and think about it, I would think that the majority of people listening to our podcast are probably familiar with the Teenage Ninja Turtle cartoon.
Yeah.
Anecdotally, knowing from people that have told me they listen, and you probably know who you are. You probably maybe more familiar with Michelangelo, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I don't know. Anyway,
Continuing
Study of the Russell 3000 index and the 13,000 companies that at one point or another from 1980 to 2020 were members of this index. There's 3,000 companies at a time.
Yeah.
But some come in, some leave. This to me, I think.
Some go out of business.
Some go out of business. More than some.
Yeah.
More than some.
Yeah, 40% of them in that time
Over 40
suffered
years.
what was called a catastrophic loss, which means the value of the investment went down 70% or more. Or more.
From the peak, never to recover the previous gain.
Now, some of these, before looking at the list that was drawn up, I did know off the top of my head.
Absolutely.
But the one that stuck out to me the most was Blockbuster.
Well, so let's look at some of these. Macy's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chi-Chi's?
Chi-Chi's
I don't.
restaurant.
Okay.
Exactly. I remember Chi-Chi's. You may not. I'm a couple years older. TCBY. I remember this.
Was that in the malls?
It was in malls.
Yeah,
the country's
okay.
best yogurt. LA Gear.
That's what that's for. Yeah.
It's what it
Country's
stands for.
best
It's frozen
yogurt. Yeah, it
yogurt.
makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, I see it.
country's best yogurt.
TCBY. Yeah. Got it.
LA Gear. I love those sneakers. That was when I was in school. I mean, LA Gears. You had it. Blockbuster. Radio Shack. Okay, these were all
Radio
companies
Shack, yeah.
that at one point or another had significant market share. Were huge companies.
Yeah.
And now-
Blockbuster. You used to have to rewind the tape.
Yeah, you got to
Before you took it
rewind it.
back.
Be kind, rewind. That was the slogan. And now, gone.
Yeah. It's staggering, though, when you think about it. Over that period of time, 40% of the companies that were part of that index
Almost half.
went down 70% or more. But what's crazier is that knowing that since 1980, that index has averaged more than 13% per year as its average annual rate of return.
Right.
And it shows that when we talked about maybe 5 minutes ago, and we said those companies that, or those investments that have lost money, where we tend to hang our hat on, because that's all we focus on,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't focus on the other ones that are doing a great job and doing very well, albeit the fact that they hopefully make up a majority of your portfolio, that those companies that suffer the catastrophic loss are not enough to deter the investment from having an average annual rate of return over the past 40 years of 13% per year.
If I were to tell you, I have an investment for you, 7% of the companies in this fund are going to do well beyond your wildest dreams. But 40% of the investments in this fund are going to turn out to be really, really bad investments.
No one would do it.
Would you be interested?
No one would do it.
No one would.
Nope.
No one would. And sometimes that's also, we don't have all the data there.
Yeah.
But when you say, hey, by the way, this is going to average a 13% return over 40
Historically,
years.
it has.
Over the past 40 years,
Now-
it's going to average a 30 or a
Our
13% return.
Our fully staffed compliance department would tell us that we have to mention that past performance is no guarantee of future returns. But
It is
40
not.
years is 40 years is a long time, and it shows the picture that you're going to have investments that will lose money,
Mhm.
and you're going to have investments that are not going to meet your expectation. But it highlights the performance. It highlights the importance of being invested in a diversified portfolio, because all it takes is less than 10% of your investments to do wildly well, and you have the potential for a very, very good return over time.
Yeah, because it was 7% of the companies in the Russell 3000 that drove almost all of that 13% average annual return. And some of these names, of course,
Everyone's going to know.
Amazon,
Some of them.
Apple, Microsoft. But it's not just technology companies. It's names like McDonald's, Target, Hershey.
I did not know that Hershey makes Skinny Pop.
Yeah.
It's one of their brands.
Well, have you ever been to Hershey? Like
Nope.
Hershey Park?
Nope.
So it was eye-opening for me when we went to Hershey Park. We've gone a couple times with the kids. Probably start to be age-appropriate for you guys soon. And when you go into the big gift shop,
Yeah.
and you look, and I'm standing there looking around going, oh, so
They have a lot of brands that
all
you
of
wouldn't
these
think about.
brands are Hershey's. It's not just candy bar. There's
Yeah.
There is Reese's. There's Twizzlers, Jolly Rancher. What are the gum cubes you have in your drawer that I'm always coming and asking you for?
Icebreakers?
Icebreakers.
I think that's what
Icebreakers
they are,
is a
yeah.
Hershey product. I mean, so there's
Skinny
so
Pop.
many. They've just acquired
All right,
a lot of these
favorite
brands.
kind of. So you know the brands. What's your favorite? Or we'll just candy brand that Hershey's has.
I like candy. Definitely Reese's.
Yeah, me too.
That's not
It's my favorite.
It's not close. That being said, there's nothing I don't like.
The story of Hershey's is that's a fascinating.
It's an interesting one.
It's really cool.
And Reese's as well. Reese's.
Yes.
Reese's. Anyway, yeah, Hershey. And for those in Rochester, Constellation Brands,
Mhm.
which if you're not from Rochester, you may still be familiar with Constellation Brands. Started as, it was very big into wine, but now also owns the Modelo brand, which is one of its more famous
Kim
ones.
Crawford wines, but Modelo,
Robert
Corona.
Mondavi wines. Corona and Modelo are the two, I would say probably the two biggest nationally.
I would think so.
that you'd
Yeah,
be
nationally,
familiar
I
with.
think those would be recognized.
So anyway, diversification is important, but this is what I thought was interesting too. At the same time, the study showed that if you took any single company and placed it against the index, there's a 54% chance that company would perform worse than the index.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Makes sense. I
Doesn't
mean,
surprise me.
basically a coin flip
Yep.
on an individual basis, which shows that, again, even more, the importance of having your investments split up and diversified.
Mm-hmm.
This year is a great example. In 2022, utilities and energy are the two best performing sectors.
Yep.
Now, utilities and energy don't really get anybody excited, nor have they for the
'cause over
past several
time-
years when technology has been just an absolute home run hitter in terms of investment returns.
But it also highlights the importance that every industry and every sector will ebb and flow.
Yeah.
Utility companies, often considered to be very boring investments, tend to be higher dividend payers and low growth type of companies.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to think of a utility company over the long term as your best performing growth investment, nor is it going to respond that way. But this year, it's one of the best sectors to be invested in.
You're quite happy you have utility companies this year if you
Yeah.
have them.
And that highlights, even though you may be young, you may not need utility companies, but having that diversification will help to provide the opportunity for a consistent return over time. Because we've talked about it in previous podcasts. It's not about just getting the best performance every single year. It's about having consistent performance year in and year out. And that's when compound interest, the eighth wonder of the world, really starts to show.
It's about seeking a return that you can sustain for the longest period of time.
Yes. And we as human beings have to remind ourselves to ignore that one critique
Sure.
and focus on the four compliments. Easier said than done. I do it. I imagine you do it because I think
All the
everybody
time.
does it. That's just
Absolutely.
human nature. But with life, anything in life, we have to focus on the positives, focus less on the negatives. Chances are the positives are going to happen a lot more, but we can't let the negatives cloud our judgment.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Nor should we be focused, and this to me was eye-opening, because people will say, well, what are some good investments? I don't know.
I know people ask all the time.
What do you think?
I was to lunch on which I never go on lunch, but I was out of the office on Friday with some family, and they said, "What's the best investment?" I said, that's not what it's about.
Right.
That's not what investing is about. It's not about having the single best investment today. It's just about having good investments over time. That's it.
I like to say I don't know.
Yeah, and I never give
Because
anyone an answer.
You really don't. I say I don't know, but I know that if we have a well-diversified group of investments and we're patient with them and give them time, we'll be just fine.
Best investment now, buying sunflower seed futures probably.
Why is that?
I'm just being sarcastic.
Okay.
Trying to find.
I like
think of
sunflowers.
the most off the wall.
Good.
You know, I cannot do those when we played baseball. Sunflower seeds. They never
No.
did it for me.
I
found
enjoy
them
them now.
to be a distraction.
I enjoy them now, but no. It's
I
too
think
much.
only as long as I had a thing of floss in my pocket with me would I
Yeah.
be entertain the idea of chewing those.
I just like to have as much gum as humanly possible stuck into my mouth. And I still do. To me, and we'll wrap this up. And if, we're pretty much done here if you want to leave.
Yeah.
But
I remember we'd get the Bubblicious pack. It'd be
Yeah.
a sleeve of
Yeah.
I don't know, 5 or 6.
Well, yeah. And I
I feel like you'd fit the whole pack in your
you
mouth.
do all at once. To me, I'm a minimum 3 pieces of gum. Those icebreakers, I don't do less than 3.
Yeah, that explains why they go so fast.
That's why I'm always coming to you. Say, hey, getting gum.
Yeah. Okay.
So between you and Victoria, it gets to a point where I'm like, all right, I've been down here like 3 times this week. I need to go buy some gum. So anyway,
but the sunflower seed, it blows my mind as to what they report the futures on.
hogs.
Yeah, that was the other
That's
one.
the other one. Hog futures, wheat, sunflower seeds.
I always get a kick out of seeing that scroll across the screen and think people really pay attention. But people do.
And some people do, and some people invest in that. I mean,
wild rice, I think is.
Now I have clients that are farmers, and they do pay attention to that because it'll influence the price that they're getting for wheat or cabbage or whatnot. But the reality
just don't typically think about it.
The stuff that scrolls across the screen on CNBC, it's really not that important, and it really doesn't apply nearly as much as it's made.
It applies somewhere, just not broadly,
but not as much as they give it credit for.
Yeah, of course.
So, hey, this is Wade into Wealth. We will be back next week. Thanks for sticking with us.